Traveling the Vortex.
We've joined the Doctor as he travels the Vortex, and despite a delay, we've arrived at episode 414. I'm Keith.
I'm Glenn.
I'm Sean.
How are you guys?
Wait.
It's because we're sitting out of order today.
That totally wasn't right.
Nope, it totally wasn't. We're not going to do it again. We're just going to acknowledge the fact that we are recording at Sean's house this week, and so we have been forced to set in a different order. And I just completely went out of turn based on the fact of where I was sitting.
Hi, MTV Cribs. Welcome to my house.
You're right, Sean. It does have to do with where you sat. It's totally into that. So.
I'm not crazy.
I thought you were. You are crazy.
Just for different
You're
reasons.
just for different reasons.
Oh, well,
yes. Yeah. I could get used to this though. I'm sitting in the corner of the couch here, and it's quite comfortable.
Yeah,
so.
this couch is pretty comfy. So how are you guys? It's been a couple weeks.
It has been a couple of weeks. Yeah, we should apologize. We've had some illnesses
Yes.
and some technical issues. So
Yes, unfortunately the plague came down in our household, and Gemma got very sick when she caught the norovirus and a strain of E. coli.
Ugh.
We don't know where. Did you guys do anything fun in the long interim between recordings? I obviously didn't do much.
It's been
because
so
there was
long,
Too
I
much
don't-
sickness.
I don't
Well,
remember.
one of us went to a fairly major
Yeah, I was-
sports ball.
I was saving that because I was going to try to think of everything chronologically because that I could remember because it was just a few days ago.
I got a couple movies in.
What'd you watch?
I watched Crazy Rich Asians.
How was it?
It was rather enjoyable.
I haven't seen that one yet.
I think it's kind of your standard romantic comedy, but I thought it was a lot. And as someone who doesn't really tend to enjoy those as much, I liked it. And then I watched Christopher Robin.
And?
It was good.
It was, wasn't it?
It's melancholy. It's kind of... It's not until, they're off to try to rescue Christopher Robin or save Christopher Robin that the movie really shows its heart of what it could have been. But I think the cast was phenomenal.
We went and saw The Mule, which is very good. It's probably one of the best films of the year,
Wow.
despite being one of those movies that, only has 3 endings.
Do you remember your stuff chronologically?
No, I don't remember a darn thing I watched all week. But I'll go ahead and go to the game. My dad and I went to the Colts and Chiefs game in Kansas City at Arrowhead Stadium on Saturday. Watched the first game of the championship playoff. Watched Kansas City beat Indianapolis, breaking that curse.
Woo!
We had really great seats.
Nice.
And we were back up underneath the awning, so where
Even
'cause
better.
the upper deck comes out about maybe a quarter of the way out over the field level seats, and so we didn't get snowed on at all while we were up there because it snowed the entire game in Kansas City. Now, towards the end, it was a real light snow, but it was a good game. We really enjoyed it and had a lot of fun. Took about an hour and a half to get out of the parking lot.
Oh yeah, there and back is.
It was a lot louder than the RCA Dome in Indianapolis, wasn't it?
I don't know. I didn't go to the RCA Dome in Indianapolis. That was Gen Con that I didn't go.
Oh, that's right. You didn't go to Gen Con with us, did you?
This was my first NFL
Well,
game.
you just missed out everything, didn't you? Okay. I'll shut up now. If it makes you feel
Yeah, my friends used to go to football games because and without me, they didn't think I liked football. And I'm not a huge sports fan. I'm not making any sort of grand, gestures here that I love sports. I don't, but I do enjoy NFL football.
To get to go to a thing in person.
I watch it. I watch it occasionally at home.
You're the one who does fantasy football.
Yeah,
every
I
year.
do fantasy football. I don't, I think I've got this, most guys get this stigma of being sports nuts. I've got this stigma of not liking sports at all, but
If it makes you feel any better,
but they
in
would
my
go.
head-
They'd go off to these games all the time and have a great time. They never invited me, and I'm sure it's because they thought I didn't like football. I never said anything.
if it makes you feel any better, in my head, you were always there.
Apparently, so you thought I went to.
I've
Just
convinced
assumed you were
myself.
You
there.
thought I went to
that
Gen Con
you were
that year
there.
with you guys.
No, I didn't invite you because they weren't my tickets. So I if I got an invite, it was like, yeah, I'll go. But congratulations to our Chiefs. We hope that we have listeners out there who are pulling for them. I imagine there may be 2 of you in the New England area who are not, but I think probably the majority of America is probably not leaning toward the Patriots this week. So,
Did you guys do anything else this week?
I just remembered that I also watched the omnibus version of Genesis of the Daleks on the Blu-ray.
The omnibus edition,
That's
you say?
what it's called on the menu, Glenn.
Oh, really? The omnibus. I'm sorry. Can you say that one more time for the old guy over here in the corner that can't quite hear so good? The omnibus edition.
Don't have Sean syndrome. I have always acknowledged that this copy on this disc is called the omnibus. It is an omnibus version because they have sewn it together and they've cut pieces out. There was never an omnibus version before this. Quit. You're my only saving grace that this guy's nuts.
I can't speak for if there was a previous omnibus version. I just know I watched
That's the only thing I have argued is that he did never watch an omnibus version that maybe KT.
They were all ominous.
Maybe KT. Well, what was the KTPK? What's the
KCPT?
KCPT.
Kansas City Public Television.
I think the other one's the one I watched that I just rattled off that I never can remember. I think it is.
Yeah, that one.
They may have put their own together, but there was never an official omnibus version of.
Well, now there is.
Well, yes, there is, and they made it for the disc.
Well, or did they make?
Or the probably for the theatrical presentation.
Or did they just air the one they made for the disc?
I suspect they probably made it to put on the Blu-ray.
Yeah.
Was there a
and
giant
then they
clam?
decided to add it to the theater.
No.
So.
Oh, well, then it's not the omnibus edition.
There was one sewer scene.
There was
only one sewer scene. I honestly wasn't that impressed by that.
Were you missing the claim?
I was. I felt like the pacing was just way off. It felt far too rushed, and there were times where I know the story, and I was confused of who was who and what was going on. Maybe I was because I was sick, but I'm gonna blame it on the editing.
Was it 90 minutes?
Yeah, an hour 25.
Oh, well then that's not.
So 85 minutes.
It was nearly 90 minutes. Yeah.
Oh, well, okay, that's probably the one that we saw.
It's the one. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I didn't go with you to that either. No.
So regardless, from now on out, I'll be watching the.
I have a feeling that's why he's such good friends with me. He thinks we go everywhere together. He thinks I'm at everything he's at.
Are you sure you're just not a figment of his imagination?
Maybe I am.
Maybe you're his Tyler Durden.
This whole podcast is happening in the confines of my brain, which has now created a St. Elsewhere because it's eliminated like 10 other things in fandom that don't exist either. But fortunately, we're on the same pee schedule as Michael Jaston. So
that's right. Wait, I am, not you.
Well, I am by default.
By default. Oh, okay. There you go. I got you. Let's move on to news.
All right, we start with some rather somber news. W. Morgan Shepherd has passed away. That is Mark Shepherd's father, and who played Canton Everett Delaware III, the older version.
Yes.
In the two-parter Impossible Astronaut, Day of the Moon.
He was only in Day of the Moon. No, he was at the end of Impossible Astronaut.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
No, he was at the beginning of an Impossible. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. He passed away at the age of 86.
Well, that's certainly a long-lived life, and sad for his family and friends, but he'll be remembered.
Gonna miss his voice.
Yeah. Next bit of news: War Master volume coming up. Rage of the Time Lords is going to feature the Eighth Doctor.
Woo!
Paul McGann and Derek
Jacobi is the master, the War Master. So
together, finally, at last.
I almost said Jacoby. I almost fell into our own
That's why
way.
I just let you take over.
It's
his
Jacobi.
name.
Yeah, it's definitely Jacobi.
So that's really awesome. That's coming out eventually.
Jacobi does not sound British.
I think it sounds more British than Jacoby.
No, Jacoby's totally classier.
Coming up in March 13th, you can go see Logopolis on the big screen ahead of the Blu-ray release.
That's the one you should have let Glenn read.
Yeah, that'll be one of those Fathom. That's why I didn't. That's why I didn't. That's one of those Fathom. I can't say Fathom. It's one of those Fathom again. Logopolis isn't even the one I can't say. It's Castrovalva that I always had trouble with. We always do this. No, it's
always does that.
I always do it.
You can get tickets right now through
No, I
Adam.
meant we always do this dance.
Yeah. in a bunch of tickets in a bunch of theaters throughout the U.S. and I believe the U.K. One day only, March 13th.
March 13th.
No real details on what the
That'll be during the week, so
how
we'll
they're.
see it.
Its runtime is an hour and 55 minutes, so I'm assuming they're just airing it as a whole, including a making of Legopolis.
So it's an omnibus version?
No, I'm assuming it's with credits.
What? How long is it?
Hour 55.
Oh yeah, no, it would be. They're probably
Because even with the making of, that's probably included.
Yeah.
All 4 segments.
All 4 parts. One day to get your tickets.
I don't know if I'd want to see Tom fall off that radio tower on the big screen. That's traumatic enough.
Yeah, take some Kleenexes with you. If you haven't been watching already, just a reminder that Twitch is doing another classic Doctor Who marathon going until January 25th, I believe.
Yeah, I think that's right. They don't have. They at least last night when I checked, they didn't have the schedule from the 21st to the 25th up yet.
It's oh, I had the date, and now I lost it.
It's still just in the afternoons, isn't it?
Still, yeah.
Yeah.
Instead of airing 3 times this time, it's only airing twice.
Right.
10 a.m. and 6 p.m. GMT.
It's funny on I don't know what the weekend that it started. I of course logged on to Twitch right in the middle of the Get Across the Chasm in the Daleks. I thought, of course,
Oh, of course. Why
I
not?
love the Daleks. It's a long, complicated, drawn out, slow story at times, but I was like, oh, this is great. I'll watch this, and my least favorite part is when I logged on. I was like, oh, come on, this is my luck.
And then our last bit of news, if you haven't already watched, the very first episode of TARDIS Sauce has hit the feeds on YouTube.
Yep, Sci-Fi for Me partnership that we're doing on their YouTube channel, and they also run it once on their Twitch channel
of Twitch,
too.
yeah.
And we did what we called episode 0, and it's an interview the three of us, and Richard.
Timothy Harvey.
Timothy Harvey. Richard. Where did I get Richard from? Timothy Harvey, who is the one of our co-hosts. He actually is with Sci-Fi for Me, and he does a lot of other programs over there. So check out their YouTube channel. But we got to interview Andrew Cartmel.
Yeah.
For episode 0. So you can find that on the Sci-Fi for Me channel, and I think we've got a link from our Facebook page to help you get there. So if you go to our Facebook and look for that.
Friend of the show, Andrew Cartmel.
Yes.
Yeah, it was nice to... you guys got to interview him at Galley however long ago.
I didn't. That was the year Sean went by himself.
Don't both you always
weren't
go
with me?
together?
Oh, yeah. We always go together, yeah. Of course I was there. I remember it. I met him in person.
You must have been in the bathroom with Michael Jaston.
So it was great to talk to him.
It was great to
He's
talk to
just the nicest guy.
He really is.
There's one more episode in the can that will be dropping on Wednesday, and Keith, because he's been ill, was not able to join us, but Sean and I and Tim talked about a little bit about the new series. So I think that drops Wednesday on
Next
YouTube.
Wednesday. We're releasing on an every other week schedule.
Okay, so next Wednesday. Anyway, look for that on the Sci-Fi for Me YouTube channel. It's Sci-Fi 4 Me, all one word. Yeah. So it's the easiest way to search for it.
That's it for news. Up next is feedback.
Highly wrote feedback about season 11. Holly wrote feedback about season 11. I was going to sing, but then nothing happened. We got sick, glitches, and more. 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 It's a poor excuse. We just hope that you're not sore. She wrote so much feedback about every ep this year. Lots of words describing hopes and dreams and fears. And then I forgot to sing, causing no small stream of tears. We got sick, glitches, and more. 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 It's a poor excuse. We just hope that you're not sore.
Yeah.
Very nice. Very, very
I think that
nice.
was worth the wait. Don't you
Yeah,
think that was
I think
worth
so.
the wait? Yeah. Hopefully Holly feels the same way.
I hope so.
So there you go, Holly. He has come through
That's right.
with his promise to you.
Jazz hands.
And if anybody else wants him to sing, go ahead and send in feedback, and we'll try to figure out a way to get him to do it again.
Yeah. Just keep asking. and
Always
we'll
enjoying
deliver.
I'm glad you do it.
Yeah, me
It's fun.
too. Our first bit of feedback came from Daniel on Twitter. He tweeted us to in response to our Christmas episode and Celestial Toymaker, saying, "Nice, just listened to the podcast episode of this story. I think the Toymaker was originally written with the idea of being a Time Lord, though later stories like the Quantum Archangel would indeed say he was a Guardian, the Crystal Guardian."
Ah.
Yeah.
That'll be interesting when we read that. And I think we had talked about him being an Eternal, possibly. And I remember you had even brought up that you kind of felt like maybe this was originally going to be him written as a Time Lord, that the Doctor would meet up with somebody else from his race. And so there you go, spot on.
I'm not the only one.
Our next bit of feedback comes from Jameson.
Jameson writes, tangential rant fodder and feedback replies. Hello, Vortexers. Until I hear otherwise, I'll keep this opening. Before I get to my replies to your comments on my last letter, let me ask a few other questions. At the time of writing this first half, I've gotten confirmation that you've received my feedback but have not heard it. This will be a rather long one, so give it your best reader. Aw, I got to read it. There's not really a direct line to cause of effect in these comments. They're more of a big ball of wibbly-wobbly, timey-wimey stuff. I've stuck them together in a semblance of order with new comments in one section and replies to your replies in another. Here I go. I've composed this over several days, and it encompasses your episodes 40 through 43. As such, I tend to jump all over the place and comment across a broad spectrum of thoughts, subjects, and tangents.
Yeah, we do that too.
Yeah.
I apologize if you get confused in places. Hopefully, my replies to your replies for this feedback will make a little more sense. First, as I finished your coverage on the Key to Time season... Okay, let me reset my brain now. Let me comment on it. I heard that you were aware of the Big Finish Key to Time trilogy starring Peter Davison as the Fifth Doctor.
Well, you've yet to get to it.
117 through 119 in their main monthly range.
Well, we're getting close, though, aren't we?
We are.
They're good stories, with the first one, The Judgment of Iskar, being my favorite of the bunch. The Seventh Doctor's hunt for the key is in a comic. I haven't read it. Sorry. You mentioned that you guys were getting a little tired of Tom Baker. I know the feeling. I've just finished City of Death, and am halfway through Creature from the Pit in my watch-through, and am overjoyed that I only have a season and a half of Tom Baker left. Nothing against his Doctor, I'm just ready for something different. The Key to Time series, while ambitious, isn't always the best Doctor Who has to offer.
Okay.
He's
Sorry.
on a rewatch.
But I was thinking, why would we say we're getting tired of Tom? But because we did all of Key to Time all together, yeah. So.
Yeah. Of the 6 stories, I really enjoyed Stones of Blood more than I thought I would. The prison guard twinkly lights on the ship were hysterical. Power of Kroll was my least favorite, but it wasn't terrible. Armageddon Factor was okay, but definitely could have been shortened to 4 episodes. I enjoyed Ribos Operation and Terra much more than you guys seem to have. Terra's just a fun medieval story. I enjoyed Count Grendel and agree that he had a Sheriff of Rottingham feel, and the Gaff Vendicay is so over the top that I find him a delight to watch. Sometimes scenery chewers are just fun. The Pirate Planet is good and has some great ideas. Adam's humor is just fun. However, it could have been better realized and could have been refined a little more, maybe. Otherwise, good coverage of the Key to Time. After I finished Key to Time on DVD, I went ahead and listened to the second season of Fourth Doctor Adventures featuring Mary Tam before moving on to Destiny of the Daleks. I listened to the opening of episode 411 in case my feedback was there. It wasn't.
Sorry.
However, because of this, I caught that Sean had just finished watching Voyager. If I get you mixed up, I apologize in advance. No, that was me. You're right.
Yep.
I love Voyager. I'd say it has to be my favorite Star Trek series. It has an ongoing arc, trying to get home, that Next Gen didn't really have, and it's the series that I used to watch all the time on Spike TV. As to the question of how I found you, I can't remember if it was the Doctor Who Podcast Alliance or just random Google searches for Doctor Who podcasts. It was one of the two. And Sean, I'm not a sheep. I listen to music, audiobooks, and podcasts.
That's a big throwback.
Mostly audiobooks and podcasts. Mainly on my SanDisk MP3 player, and sometimes on my HP laptop or Android phone.
Hold on, I feel like we should pause here for a second. Have we mentioned that after all this sheep conversation early on in the podcast, Sean now has his own iPod?
Kind of hoping to get around that one.
Yeah, no, we haven't.
No,
You're right.
yeah.
You're right. No.
That's got to be addressed, Sean.
Sean
Does it
an
really
iPod.
count if I'm 7, 8, 10, how many years before? When did you have yours?
It doesn't matter, Sean. It doesn't matter which version or how long after.
2006, 2007, I think. Is that right?
Okay, so it's now 2019. I got it late 2018. 12 years behind the curve. Does it really still make me a sheep?
What is it? Is it even this it?
That's it.
See, but now, Sean, it's easier to go without an iPod than previously.
That's true. Cause
I've migrated most of my stuff except for Big Finish and
I
some
upgraded
music to my phone.
I upgraded to an iPhone. So
That's still sheep, according to him back in the day.
at the time I had an iPod and an iPhone. I think for a while.
Yeah.
You're such a sheep.
Anyway, sorry.
Do you remember you and Dave sitting there having the engraving on the back of your iPod discussion?
Yeah. It was free.
Sheep. On the subject of the Series 6 finale, River has her own series now from Big Finish called The Diary of River Song. Of the 4 or 5 box sets out, I've listened to the first 3. The third features the 5th Doctor and Madame Kavorian and is quite good. The first is also enjoyable. The second one was fine, but it was the weakest so far. Also, the Silents have appeared in an audio box set in the new Unit range.
That'll be fun to figure out how that works in audio.
Volume 3
Surprisingly
Unit.
well.
Silenced. I enjoyed it and thought it added to the lore of the Silents well. Definitely filling in the gaps of what happened after Day of the Moon.
You've listened to it, right?
Yeah.
Keith? Yeah, okay.
It's good.
That's right.
Another thing I've noticed that you often have links in your show notes of places or things mentioned in the episode. A large chunk are offline or removed.
Oh.
I hadn't thought of that.
Yeah, I hadn't thought of that either.
I don't know if you wanted to consider maybe assessing them. Well, we will now.
Sounds like a great quality improvement project.
I think probably what I'll do is I'll put a note somewhere on there that says links may not be longer available. I think you have to kind of forgive us a little bit there, Jameson.
We cannot be held responsible for other people's websites.
Keep in mind you are way back in the past when those things were active. And that's pretty common for other websites that are blog based like ours is.
Yeah. It was only 8 years.
Yeah, and some of those, I mean, if I went back, I could go back and clean those out, but if we mentioned that in a podcast that it's going to be there, and it's not there anymore, then it makes it look like we either forgot to put it, which has happened before, or, as you pointed out, the links just are broken now and don't go to where they went years ago. So I think maybe what we ought to do for people that are doing what you're doing and popping back in is just have a perpetual note in there that says, the links may not be available in the future.
Not a bad idea.
Yeah.
Whoops.
Thanks for pointing that out. I had never considered that.
Yeah.
I'm listening to episode 41 on the Unearthly Child. In it, you mentioned that the Doctor's love of Earth may be a subconscious desire to run into Susan again. Apart from the 5 Doctors, there are 2 different versions of the Doctor and Susan's reunion, both featuring the 8th Doctor. The first is a novel called Legacy of the Daleks and features McGann's Doctor, Susan, and the Daleks, minus Davros, and the Delgado Master. I really enjoyed it. The second is a linked series of audio dramas from Big Finish, An Earthly Child, Relative Dimensions, Lucy Miller, and To the Death.
We're getting there.
We are getting
close to those 2.
Also, there's a short trip featuring the 8th Doctor trying to keep Susan from joining the Time War, called All Hands on Deck.
It was a what?
There's a short trip.
Short trip, okay.
Oh, that's a very recent one.
It must be a newer one.
Yeah, it's very recent.
Also, An Unearthly Child has a direct sequel in the Doctor Who magazine comic story, Hunters of Burning Stone, which was their 50th anniversary special.
Yeah.
Torchwood. I loved Captain Jack in Doctor Who and thought I'd give Torchwood a shot. Be aware this was back in the early 2010s when I'd first discovered Doctor and was going back and rewatching New Who. I remember enjoying the first episode, then came back to the second episode. I skipped that and then watched most of the rest of the season, mainly just skipping a few questionable scenes like a large chunk of out of time. The ideas tended to be interesting and good ideas, especially having gone back and read some of the episode synopses more recently. However, I just found it way too adult for my tastes. For context, I'm currently 26. I'm glad you guys like it, and part of me wishes I could like it too, but given the adult nature...
Not everybody here likes it. Well, I don't hate it, but I'm not going back and rewatching them anytime soon.
Given the adult nature, and at least some of it wasn't necessary or doesn't seem necessary, Torchwood just isn't for me. I'm going to advise you to stay far, far away from Children of Earth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, I know this is rather late, but my top 5 introductory classic stories for fans of New Who are, in absolutely no particular order, City of Death, especially if they're Douglas Adams fans, An Unearthly Child, because everyone needs to see how the show began, Terror of the Autons, for the Master, the TV movie,
Yeah.
nice transition, and Dalek Invasion of Earth, because it's a little shorter and faster paced than the Daleks. And there's no chasm.
I would agree with that.
I do feel that the Doctor Revisited selections were good choices. Haven't gotten to your coverage of them, if there is some, yet. Hopefully it will be enjoyable. Also, if you were to introduce someone to the Big Finish audios, what would your top 5 introductory stories be? Pardon me if you've already done this at some point. Mine would be Blood of the Daleks, parts 1 and 2, Spare Parts, The Fearmonger, Foe from the Future, Valley of Death, and The Marian Conspiracy. Again, looking forward to your Big Finish reviews. I've currently finished episode 43. Anybody want to tackle that one?
Spare Parts for sure is in there on my top. We just listened to one recently that made it to the top of my list, and
the Tom Baker one.
Was it? No, I think it was a Seventh Doctor story, wasn't it?
No, it was the Leela and Tom, because they went down to the planet and it turned out to be a vampire story, but then it wasn't.
Yeah. What was that? You're right.
What was that one?
Second one from season 3.
Yeah, that whatever that was called. that one definitely. Yeah, you're right.
White Ghost.
White Ghost.
Yeah,
it was
White Ghost.
It was for and Leela. You're right. So that one is just it's a loaded question because what would you introduce people to? I mean, if they're already familiar with Doctor Who, then yes, Spare Parts, that one, White Ghost. I think
Light at the End would be a
Light
pretty
at the End's a good
decent
one.
Introductory story.
Except for that has
an anniversary.
that has the 5 Doctor syndrome, where if you introduce somebody to classic Who with 5 Doctors, even if they're fans of the series, then it doesn't work because there's way too much going on there, way too much. There's way too much fan service there, and so I think that could inadvertently work the same way. Even if you're a fan of Doctor Who, even of classic Doctor Who,
you need
getting
to be a
them
fan
into
of
the Big
classic
Finish,
Doctor Who
but getting them into Big Finish that way, there's a lot of as I guess my point is the 5 Doctors relates to fan service to the series, as the Big Finish Light at the End relates to the Big Finish era of stuff. So if you haven't been introduced to Big Finish, there's a lot of little pieces that I think you might miss. So because
I could totally see that,
and it does interconnect to the TV series as well. But there's enough in there that kind of is, I think, Easter eggish enough that it may get a little overloaded with those. But it is a good one. It is a good story. It's terrific. And then my other one on that list, I agree with some of yours there. Fearmonger, I think, no, I don't remember liking that one well. But another one I would add to that list would be The Spectre of Lanyon Moore with the 6th Doctor and
Evelyn.
Yeah, and the Brigadier. Yeah.
And Marian Conspiracy is a good one, and Blood of the Daleks is a good one. Yeah,
and I
didn't care for Fearmonger.
I liked, and Keith will totally disagree with it because he's never been a fan of it. I liked Minuet in Hell as well. I think that's a good one.
See, I was just thinking not Chimes of Midnight, the very first one.
Sirens of Time.
No, the very first 8th Doctor one.
Oh, 8th Doctor. That wasn't the Cyberman story, was it?
No,
Sword of Orion?
Orion's the second one.
Yeah.
It's the R101 with Charlie. What is
Yeah,
the name
yeah.
of it?
That one I would probably introduce.
We're so bad at titles.
I think
We've
it kind
got
of would,
internet right in front of us. I don't want to look things up.
I think it kind of would depend for me on what to recommend based off of what their tastes are in classic Who, or if they're just interested in Big Finish and don't have much experience in audio dramas in general, then I'd probably recommend like the 10th Doctor Adventures. and they're very familiar with New Who, so it's something new and familiar for them, so they can get used to the format. I think they've done a really good job with the first volume of the 10th Doctor, introducing people to the new format for this new era of people that would come in that would never have listened to it before.
Yeah.
I think I'd have to include Invaders from Mars.
Oh, Invaders from Mars was a good one, yeah. Of course you like that one,
yeah,
because
you know,
it's kind of War of the Worlds connection.
The War of the Worlds connection and the 8th Doctor, get out. I still am riding high over what's the two-parter with that led into Orbis.
Storm Warning is the
Storm
big
Warning.
finish
Thank you.
Storm Warning,
Or the Eighth
that
Doctor
was the
one.
8th Doctor's first one.
The one where Morbius comes back with the 8th Doctor.
Well, that was good.
That one was a good one. Hot House, I thought, was a fun one with the 8th Doctor. And then
I'm hesitant to introduce any 8th Doctor other than the beginning of runs.
That's just it. Is
I
you
would
don't necessarily
agree,
want to
yeah.
drop them, especially since that one's
You
got so
can-
much of the.
Yeah, there is
You
a
can
of
with
the thread.
Charlie up
Linear arc.
until Neverland. Zagreus, whichever one comes first. You can kind of start to you can jump in a little bit more there.
Oh, totally! The entire Divergent universe.
Yeah, just yeah.
No, he's doing that tongue in cheek.
No,
But those stories, there's a character arc for Charlie and them growing together, but there's
Yeah.
not as much of a story arc
Yeah.
to focus on.
Agreed.
and then I'd have to put a 6th Doctor one in there.
The Doctor Who and the Pirates.
Yeah, well,
That's not one you
No,
introduce
that's not
to
when you introduce
somebody to
somebody.
Big Finish, because if they listen to that and went, what? No. But if you've listened to Big Finish and then you listen to that one, you have a much greater appreciation
a
for
6th
it.
Doctor and Evelyn one, but I'm not sure which one.
Probably, I would go
Project
Marion.
Project Twilight. That's the one that took place on the. No, that's not. What was the Dalek one that was part of Dalek Empire when they were doing the crossovers on that? That
That's
was a good
Marian
one.
Conspiracy.
Marian Conspiracy. You're right. That's what it was
No,
called.
I thought Marion Conspiracy was purely historical. Wasn't that her very first one?
Oh yeah, that was.
You're
What
right,
was
yeah,
the Dalek one where we figured it? We found out that it's her DNA. That's
her
the
DNA
reason
that
why
did
the Eye of Harmony opens with the
Not
Human Eye.
Jubilee.
no. Although there's another
that's a
good one there.
too.
Blood Tide's a good one to introduce also.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
Silurians.
And the mascot.
Yeah.
America. All right, let's move on.
Arrangements for War, was that it?
No, that's later. You got to go earlier for.
Just type in Dalek Empire 1, because those were
Apocalypse Element.
that's
That's
it.
the
Apocalypse Element was good.
Yeah, that was a good one. Okay. Back to the email here. I've noticed that your episodes are getting shorter these days. I went and looked at the top 6 pages of your website. Rather than the 1.5 to 2.5 hour episodes that you were having in the early days, most now seem to be under an hour. Have you been cutting out your rants and tangents? Because those are sometimes the best parts of the episodes. Remember when you spent almost half an hour ranting about light bulbs? Or spent a large chunk of 2 episodes discussing how bad teachers have it these days? That was 7 years ago. I enjoy your thoughts on Doctor Who, but I also find most of your side rants at least as entertaining, if also not interesting. Final question before I reply. Have any of you been watching the Arrowverse? Especially since John Barrowman appears as the primary villain of Arrow Season 1 and Legends of Tomorrow Season 2, as well as a secondary villain in Arrow Season 3.
Oh my gosh, spoilers.
Well, I guess I don't have to now. Thanks, Jason. Also, do any of you watch Legends of Tomorrow with Arthur Darvill? So both of you are nearly current on the DC shows?
no,
I am nearly current
You're
on the
nearly
DC
current.
shows. I have dropped off of Supergirl and Arrow this season, but I'm up to date on everything else.
I'm a couple seasons behind almost everything now.
Okay.
Yeah.
I made it. I'm 3 episodes away from finishing Arrow Season 1, and that was about 3 years ago. And that's as far as I made it. Not because I didn't find the show interesting. I just kind of petered out and got stuck with other stuff. I still plan on watching it. I just haven't yet.
Yeah.
Legend of Tomorrow is a lot of fun.
That's what I keep hearing. Now, the part of my feedback you've all been waiting for. Answers to your replies. Be aware that my watch-along has taken me over 3 years so far, and the missing episodes I consumed through audio. I've gotten all my Who DVDs through my local library, and the only Who-related items that I've actually purchased have been a handful of Big Finish that my library system was unable to acquire. You have an awesome library.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll throw that out there. On a side note, the Paul Spragg link hasn't yet appeared in the show notes.
I'm not sure what that link is.
I don't remember what that would have been in reference to.
For your questions of me, first, I'm a guy. I understand if the name's history, it was originally a guy's name before becoming popular as a girl's name. In any case, my full name is Jameson, but I usually go by Jamie. I've decided that I will listen to the opening of the episode where my feedback appears in order to give you a semi-prompt reply, and then save the rest of the episode for when I reach it in chronological order. And your oatmeal joke can't work because I will always be listening and writing you from the relative future. Besides, I don't eat oatmeal. My plan is to collect my thoughts and comments as I progress through the backlog and then add my replies to the end of each new feedback. At the time of this writing and where I am in the podcast, you have nothing but good to say about Stephen Moffat and at times feel like Moffat apologists. While I will save my Moffat rant for another letter, as this is already getting way too long, I will be interested to see if your opinions change as you progress through the Capaldi years. The whole hybrid arc was Moffat's most confusing and least rewarding, at least for me. I look forward to hearing your thoughts on the matter. Don't get me wrong, I enjoy Moffat, and some of my favorite episodes are written by the guy. I see that you've done a retrospective on the entirety of Moffat. I look forward to hearing it. Might save my thoughts until then. You mentioned gaps between seasons of Broadchurch, so I assume you've seen it. If you've already commented on it in the run-up to Series 11, then let me know, and I'll get there at some point. Keith has watched all of it.
Yeah.
I've only seen the first season.
You've seen the first season. I've seen none of it.
And I think I've commented on it as I watched it, so
Yeah.
you'll get there.
I'm interested in hearing your thoughts. I apologize for being so long. There's just a lot of questions and or comments that I wanted to put to you guys, plus my replies to your comments on my previous feedback. Great show as always. Keep up the good work, Jamie.
Thank you, Jamie.
P.S.
Thanks.
I have no interest in the #1 fan competition. However, it might be fun to have whoever claims to be in the running address their feedback in the manner of Lord President or President-elect of Gallifrey, which are as follows.
Okay.
Well, he includes it.
There's a lot of words there.
The President of the Supreme Council of Gallifrey and all her dominions, holder of the wisdom of Rassilon, preserver of the Matrix, guardian of the legacy Omega, or President-elect of the High Council of Time Lords, keeper of the legacy of Rassilon, defender of the laws of time, protector of the galaxy. I think we could easily turn that into #1 fan.
Yes, agreed. We'll figure out a way to do that. We should have a contest for that to see if we can.
Yeah, there you go.
Now I kind of want that on a T-shirt. Oh, business cards.
That's it for feedback.
Well, we're actually going to do something a little different this week. I'm going to mix up Sean's schedule because he's very good about keeping the schedule up, and then I always seem to kind of figure out a way to kind of mash things off and push them on. We're going to talk a little bit.
Let's be honest. My schedule is a very well-constructed wall. It's brick-laid and mortar, and it's masterful.
It's
and
like
you come in like the Kool-Aid
It's like
man.
a house of cards, and I like to pull that bottom card out every time. No, I thought what we'd talk about this week is that Radio Times article. What was it called, Keith?
11 things fans want in season 11.
Yeah, so
or
we
12.
thought we'd talk a little bit about that this week instead. We thought that'd make for a pretty good topic. So
Smell an ambush.
What? Do you guys agree with the 11 things?
no, despite
Sean?
what our Facebook page says.
So
Sean agrees with the 11 things.
I
Lynn
feel,
and I do
To
not.
be fair, I don't agree with all 11 things.
No.
I feel like I need to comment on this. So I saw the article and I read it, and I felt the article in the Radio Times. I felt it was well presented. I didn't think it was divisive. It wasn't one of those clickbait attack pieces, which so frequently within Doctor Who fandom you tend to get those things. It was an article that was written from the standpoint of they asked, what do you guys think about the new season? And fans replied, which automatically you're asking for trouble there normally. But fans replied with things like, well, we'd like to see more two-parters. Okay, yeah, I could go. Not a whole season of them, but, just more two-part. I don't have a problem with that.
No, so here, let me break it down even simpler. What they responded with was, we want Peter Capaldi's era back. Pretty much every single answer was they want what Moffat had done previously.
Well, you could argue that you could you could argue
we
though,
want 2-parters. We did that a season already.
You can argue that they did that in the Matt Smith era, and you can argue they did that in the Russell T Davies era too, because they would go 1 2, they go 2-parter, and then they go 1 2 2-parter 1 2 2. So that has been a formula that's been around for a while. That's why people are missing it, because it doesn't feel that way.
I'm not saying just the 2-parters. I'm saying almost every single bullet point is.
Well, yeah.
We want Doctor Who to return to what we know instead of being something new and different.
See, I disagree. I think.
So, okay, here are the bullet points.
Go ahead and read off the bullet points. Go ahead.
So the first one is more 2-parters, long episodes, and cliffhangers. I'll agree. I'd like 5 minutes longer of an episode, or I would take a couple cliffhanger or a couple of 2-parters if it would improve the story. Next one is more Daleks and other old monsters.
Wait, and cliffhangers, you forgot about that.
And cliffhangers. Well, that comes in part and parcel with 2-parters, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And we did have a cliffhanger. Very first episode, we had a huge cliffhanger.
Yeah, one.
Well, in 10 episodes, that's 1/10 of the episodes had cliffhangers.
A poorly resolved cliffhanger. But go ahead.
So were a lot of Moffats.
90% of Doctor Who is poorly resolved.
Yes.
It's the next one, and I this is coming from me, that I don't think I think that the title's very misleading, and I don't agree with the title of it.
More Daleks and other old monsters.
Okay.
Nobody is screaming for more Daleks. Maybe, yes, old classic monsters, but not more Daleks. Nobody's screaming for more Daleks, except for me.
This is the first bullet point where I said, nope, I don't agree with this article.
I agree with part of that. Would I like to see more old monsters come back? Yeah. Do I want to see all old monsters? No. Do I want to see 15 Dalek episodes out of 16 episode season? No. You did one good Dalek episode. Okay, great, fantastic. Shelve them again for a while. You got to let those things lie. As we've discussed before, the Cybermen. Oh, great. Do you have a Cyberman worthy story? Don't trot them out unless you're going to wow me. Oh, but you want to bring the Draconians back? Well, okay, that could be cool, because we haven't gotten tired of them yet. So that's all I...
Well, and to that point, I think the hesitance of bringing back classic villains is another thing that people are asking for is, more of that callback and fan service. But I think what they're worried about is if they trot out old villains, then they will disconnect with the new viewers that aren't familiar with these. But that being said, you don't have to disconnect from your new audience. If you brought back the Draconians and you just didn't dwell on the fact that it's a returning, a villain, then suddenly you've introduced a new adversary to a whole brand new group of people that have no idea that Draconians were a past villain. To them, it's like the Weeping Angels. Hey, you just introduced, and it gets some more traction, and it gets more. So I agree with that. I think the problem that I have with let's bring back old villains is if you start diving deep back in the well of continuity, then you do lose some of those new viewers where it's like, well, I feel like I need to go back and watch 50 years of Classic Who in order to catch up with this.
It just depends on how it's done. If you look at something like the Silurians, which were basically soft rebooted and very easily explained into the thing, boom, done, and everybody's
a great example of why you could bring the Draconians back as well.
And the Draconians also, I really don't understand why, of all the monsters, the Draconians fit so perfectly into the New Who model. They would work so well as a returning villain. I really don't understand. Plus, they've got fantastic makeup. They're not one of those problematic. I mean, when I look at Doctor Who monsters, I would have totally gone with a Draconian before I'd have gone with a Zygon. In a heartbeat, from a simplicity standpoint, even. But from a storytelling point, if you want somebody that's going to shapeshift and meld into society, you use the Zygons. The Draconians, you'd have to write an entirely different story, and so they didn't. But you could have done a Rutan too, and not shown. You could have done a CGI Rutan a lot easier than you do a big rubber. Fake,
but then it's just a blubbery blob, and then I'd rather see the sucker monster. So I mean, it's
right. But again, when we talk about production value in Classic Who, and we talk about bubble wrap, and we've talked about fake looking monsters. We've talked about, and that's one of the things the show has. We like it. We like the charming, endearing,
I thought the Saigons looked great. I don't think they
they
look
do.
rubbery sucker monsters
they
at all.
do,
I mean,
but they're-
obviously we're sucker monsters. They had big old suctions on them.
There is a pretty big litany of bad Who monsters. The Zarbi, you could go down the list. The Slovene, that was even a new series. The dinosaurs.
Oh, you're talking about the classic series.
Yeah, if you're going to bring something back, there's a bunch of dogs out there that would not translate well.
Well, the Zarbi would be great because then you could do them all CGI and do them right. I think that's a great idea.
But I think the
we're dwelling here.
We're dwelling way too long.
I'm for more classic monsters coming back, but the way I read this section, there's not a mention other than Cybermen and Daleks.
Yeah.
So when they say old monsters, I assume they mean old new series monsters.
That's what I had.
If that's the case, no.
That's what I
had.
I
don't want to see the Silence and the Weeping Angels.
Yeah,
back.
that's what I had. That's what I took issue.
That's why I said this bullet point is the first one I disagreed with. The next one is returning characters. Again, I disagree with, unless it's classic series. So they're wanting people like Captain Jack or Rose, River Song to come back.
And that's one of those things that fandom is, there's a chunk of fandom that has never gotten over Rose leaving. And they're just going to have to deal with it, that she's gone. Could she come back? Yeah, I suppose somebody could get their druthers up and write a Rose story. Do I want to see her come back? No. Would I like to see Captain Jack come back? Yeah. I'd be fine with Captain Jack, especially now that the Doctor's a woman. I think that would be a fantastically interesting dynamic. Would I like to see Susan come back? Yeah. I really would have liked to have seen Susan come back with Capaldi, just from a dynamic acting standpoint. I think that would have been really interesting. But Jamie, let's bring Jamie McCrimmon back. Let's bring, there's so many characters that could conceivably come back into the fold. Why not? It doesn't have to be River, but it could be. It doesn't have to necessarily be one of those fan favorites that people seem to be clamoring for. But I'd be okay with it as long as they come up with a good story and a good reason to do it.
Yeah, see, I disagree because I think for 50 years, how many times did we see characters come back? We saw them come back in anniversary specials. That was it.
Yeah.
So it's not like we're used to that in classic Who.
It wasn't until the new series.
Yeah,
that
exactly. We brought back Sarah
characters
Jane, and then in
frequently.
the Sarah Jane Adventures, we brought back Joe Grant, and then peripherally, we brought back the Brigadier and Sarah Jane Adventures, and people loved that. Don't get me wrong, but that's where that kind of thing started happening. We had the 50th anniversary, not the 50th, the 25th anniversary special, the Five Doctors. Our 20th anniversary special, The Five Doctors, that brought back a bunch of old companions, but we didn't have anybody rotating in any other time. So, that comes down to returning characters when they point this out, and what fandom is calling for is Captain Jack, Rose.
They're calling for all new
River,
series.
River Song, Clara Oswald. Nobody's asking for Clara back. I am. Those kind of things. So yeah, again, I disagree. I don't think we need to see people like Captain Jack. River Song ran her course. I think she's done. I think they did a fantastic job of wrapping that up. Don't bring her back again. Yes, there are some interesting things they could do with that because of the fact that it's her relationship to the Doctor, but. No, I don't think we need it.
I think finish for novels. So.
Introduce some new really great characters.
Exactly.
I'm 100% with you on that. If River in particular, we got the Swan. I didn't want River to come back with Capaldi. We had the Swan Song. We were done, and then we got a beautiful postscript. It turned into the perfect capstone for River's
Swan Song.
moment, and it was like, okay, now I'm done. Now I'm really, really done. I don't want to see it again. And if they brought her back, you'd really have to knock me, just over the moon for that story. But if you did come up with a story that was that good, would I complain about it? No. But that's the key. The plot has to come first. You can't go into it thinking, I'm going to do this. You'd have to have the rationale for bringing that character back in order to make it work. If you're doing it as the publicity stunt of, hey, we got Rose back, well, then...
Next one is give us some jokes.
I thought this season was plenty funny.
Yeah, I think so, too. It's not the very clever, almost on the verge of slapsticky that I'm not saying we had slapstick comedy in the Matt Smith and Peter Capaldi era, but it's on the verge of that sometimes. There's a more physical humor. There's more... that awkward, uncomfortable situation, put somebody in an uncomfortable situation, and then, haha, that's funny, which worked. It worked great. It worked great with Matt Smith. It worked great with Peter Capaldi.
I don't think that would work great for this team.
Yeah. The jokes that they're telling, or the funny lines that are landing this season, are perfect for this season and perfect for this crew and this cast. And I think that I think the jokes are already there. People just, it's not the same type of jokes that worked with an older companion or a bumbling.
It's not the jokes they're familiar with.
Right.
Yeah. It's not the jokes you're familiar with. That's what it boils down to. That's what all of these are. Keith's exactly right.
They want their familiar Doctor Who back.
More of an arc.
There was an arc. There absolutely was an arc. It was a character arc. At least for Graham and Ryan.
This is the one that...
There wasn't much one for the Doctor or Yaz, and I agree, there needs to be more of
This is the one I come down on that with... I don't think there needs to be the complex, complicated, overdoing it arc that Moffat ended up falling in a trap into doing. He did a few seasons where he had some really clever arcs going on. And then he had ones where I think he really got almost too clever for himself, and they got very complex and complicated, and he had to kind of
M-nighted himself.
Yeah, exactly. And so I don't want to see a return of that. But I agree with Keith. I think there was an arc this season. It's more subtle. It's more subdued,
and it's about characters, not about story.
And so I was fine with that. I don't think it needs any more of that. But if they added more of an arc, I wouldn't be disappointed with it. But that's not something I'm clamoring for, because I don't think it was missing in the first place. Right. Bring back the cold open.
And I like the fact that there's no cold open. I like the fact that we start with credits again. It's a nice nod back to the classic series without being
not every episode of anybody else's series had cold opens.
No.
There's a bunch from 2005 to present. Present
Victoria
season.
Currently still no cold opens.
Yeah, that did not have a cold open. It opened with the credits, and that was it.
I think all of Broadchurch started with just credits.
So I think that's what Chibnall's format was.
Yeah.
So no, I think bring back the cold open is a stupid reason to be upset with Doctor.
Next one is shake up the companions. So in other words, drop one or two.
Put them in a washing machine and go shake them up, spin them dry.
So okay. I don't think we need to shake up the companions, because I like the dynamic that we have. I just think Yaz needs to become a bit more forefront, and Ryan and Graham need to step a bit more in the background.
See, shake up the companions in my mind, I don't necessarily want to see them drop anybody, but I do want to see them restructure how they focus on them, or possibly realize that maybe 3 is too many. In the history of the show, when we've had 3 companions in Team TARDIS, we had Ian, Barbara, and Susan, and that one worked for me.
Although not in every story.
But not in every story. There generally was at least one companion of that group, usually Susan, that always got sidelined. And then going into the 5th Doctor's era, which we always talked about somebody getting sidelined for something, because there was a guest star coming in. And this season has very much felt like the 5th Doctor era to me, where we've got a guest star coming in, but not being given as much to do as maybe they could be, and definitely sidelining one or two of the other characters. So, yeah, I kind of agree with that, and I think it'll be interesting. I wouldn't be surprised at all to see next season both Ryan and Graham kind of taking a back seat while we do build an arc for Yaz. Which, okay, that would be good, because it would, help flesh her out and give her something to do. But then I would also feel a little cheated that the other 2 are not getting as much.
Well, I think if they'd still get an occasional episode, kind of like Yaz got 1 or 2 this time, if they get 1 or 2 next time and Yaz gets more focus, I think that's
another thing.
Work well.
I think this is another thing to pick on Doctor Who about, because if you look at shows like Star Trek, you look at shows like Sequest, you look for they were always ensemble casts. They never gave everybody something to do every week. They would focus on characters. Now, I understand you guys' point of Yaz probably hasn't gotten enough this week. That doesn't give you, or this year, that doesn't give any, that doesn't even give any credence to drop anybody else.
No.
Because, and that's what a lot of these comments were. Well, drop this person or drop this person or drop the. No, there's no reason for that, because there's already precedent for ensemble shows that utilize a little better. You might have the focus on somebody one week and then you shift the focus. Yes, they could do a better job of that. But shaking up the characters or dropping them, saying this is crowded TARDIS syndrome. No, it's not crowded TARDIS syndrome. It's let's utilize the characters just a little bit better.
Yeah, I'm just saying they need to share the spotlight a little bit more.
But that's just it. What you just said. Star Trek is an ensemble show. Doctor Who, at least up through now, has never been an ensemble show.
Yeah, but you could make it work as an ensemble show based on what we've seen before with other shows.
It could become an ensemble show, but if it's going to be an ensemble show, I don't think you can make it work as an ensemble show by focusing on 2 characters for a whole season and then switching it out to another set of characters. I don't think that'll work. I think you've got to...
No, I totally agree.
I think a better balance
within
that's my point, is that I think that people have a good argument that Yaz was underserved and underutilized last season, but what they needed to do is they needed to kind of alternate the attention that they were giving to certain characters, and I think ultimately that would balance that crowded TARDIS out a bit more, so...
And the argument could be made, too, that you don't care because the show is not called Companions in the Magic Box. The show is called Doctor Who. That's who, And as Andy Cartmel said, you can't have all the mystery taken from this person, but so much of the show should be about how the companions react to these adventures with the Doctor and how the Doctor
Which is exactly why it's great to have more companions on the TARDIS and tell more balanced stories from the companion's point of view. You just made my point.
Well, the next one is a different side to the Doctor. So some of these quotes include, "We'd like to see more shades to the rebel Time Lord." So basically they want Peter Capaldi back.
Yeah.
They want her to act like a previous Doctor.
Or even David
Tennant.
Tennant. David Tennant was a bit of the rebel Time Lord.
They want this actress to act like somebody else's Doctor instead of being her own Doctor.
And see, I took that more from the standpoint of what we have all said, at least what I've said and that has been echoed here, is that I feel like Jodie hasn't gotten her big moment yet. I still kind of feel like she's been reined in a little bit. And I think it's more the scripts have been let down, not necessarily her, because I like Jodie. I like what she's doing. But I don't feel like she's had that ha-ha moment.
She hasn't been in the spotlight quite as much.
That's too bad, because I think she's had a lot of aha moments. That's my point of this is really you agree with this whole thing.
I don't agree.
And you no, listen. You agree with this article, and you agree with all of these points, and
but for completely different reasons than the rest of fandom.
Well, but you are able to support all of these. Well, that's my point too. Is when we say something, and I'm not calling you out, but I am. When you post on Facebook a great article, and it makes it sound like we all agree. We don't all agree.
That was the next part that I was getting to.
There's only maybe an eighth of this article that I completely agree with the rest of fandom, and again, I don't think it was done very scientifically, which I think is what Keith was trying to point out, is that they just kind of gathered what they kind of pick and choose too. I mean, I don't think it was even it was almost they asked pointed questions that they knew what answers they were looking for, and then they farmed the answers that they wanted to put in this article to make it more juicy and clickbaity. So yes, it was a very clickbaity article, despite what you said at the beginning.
One answer I can't believe was more Sheffield.
Yeah.
Okay, that's going back to RTD era where everything's on Earth.
Yeah.
No, thank you. Give me alien planets. Give me different time periods. I mean, come on.
Or John Pertwee.
Yeah, exactly.
That was an odd one. I don't think we need to see more Sheffield.
That
was probably all people from Sheffield.
Right? Yeah, probably. Make it scarier.
The Sheffield.
Here's one that I can agree with. To a point. I think make it scarier. I think I think there is a lesser elevation of tension and fear in the series this week. I keep saying this week, like we just watched this whole series this week, this season. But I don't want every episode to be a fear her or not fear her.
God, man.
Yeah, definitely don't want every.
Those are terrifying.
Oh my God. What was the one with Listen? I don't want Listen I don't want that kind of, what was the other one?
You've got to have a variety.
What's the Weeping Angel story that everybody
Blink.
loves? Blink. I don't want that level of scary for the entire season. Maybe a few more peppered in there. Maybe a few more tense situations or moments. Maybe they could elevate that a little bit more. But I don't want the entire series to be that, So,
Right.
but yeah, maybe that's one of the things that they could do is at least up the tension element of it a little bit more. That was probably something was missing this season, and so I can agree with that one.
I just think it's funny that these fans want it to be scary and funny at the same time.
Well, I think you can have.
You can strike a balance.
Yeah.
And the last one is A Villainous End.
This one I didn't quite understand.
How the exits for the villains, they felt like they weren't handled that great.
By that, can you elaborate a little more? Because I couldn't extrapolate out of this.
I think the idea is just from podcasts and comments online. The idea is they don't like the fact that the villains a lot of times just kind of got away. Chris Noth escaped at the end. The white boy and Rosa just kind of got sent off to wherever he wanted to go. They were allowed to escape more than be defeated, I think is the complaint.
Okay. What do you think of that one?
I kind of agree. I think...
But really the biggest time a villain was defeated outright is Witchfinders. That's the one time where the villain wasn't either succumbed to their own idiocy, or tricked into defeating themselves, or that they didn't escape.
Okay.
And the Dalek.
Yeah.
And the other part of it, too, is stronger villains. Because if the old comic adage that, a hero is only as good as his rogues gallery. Well, then you put that in terms of this, and when you have the tooth-faced guy, that's your returning villain for the week. You kind of go, it doesn't prop the Doctor up as much, and so I think that's another thing that in my mind has kind of not given Jodie the moment to shine. When you look at who she's going up against, it doesn't feel like a rogues gallery. It feels like a bunch of second stringers. You know?
I can see that. I never felt that way, but I can see the point.
And so then not only are they not defeated, they're kind of just go to your room. go get out.
Well, and maybe part of that comes over with the more pacifistic type Doctor that Whittaker's Doctor is. Maybe that's the level of, you can't make her vindictive or.
Well, and I think it's part of the storytelling is the fact that she's busy dealing with whatever situation this villain has wrought, and then therefore the villain isn't, she doesn't go confront the villain because she's fixing the problem that they created.
Now, I'm also very, very willing to admit that we've seen kind of template Doctors, I think, in the new series. I really genuinely believe that Matt Smith kind of took the second Doctor as his template. There's a lot of shades of 2 in 11.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I think,
he's admitted that.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of 3 in a way in Capaldi, not just in, so you kind of get that kind of stuff. And I think it's probably very easy, not just in structure, but in mannerisms, to see a lot of 5 in 13. I think Jodie has a lot of Peter Davison kind of elements to her. And
you see a lot of 4 and 10. Yeah.
They're I'm grown, as we've gone through the show, Peter Davison's really grown on me as a Doctor, but he's not my favorite. I mean, you guys know this. It's a struggle sometimes for me to do that. And I don't wonder maybe if that's where some of my struggles with the current season are at, is because it's so similar that maybe that's just what's triggering it, is that it's, because it is kind of pacifistic, because it is kind of this, and it's just kind of calling all that stuff back to it. So that could be part of it too. Now, an official retraction, because yes, I saw the article.
I've been giving him a lot of cred this last 2 weeks.
It's justified. I saw the article. I read it. I did see things in there that I agreed with, and so I thought, oh, okay, this is an interesting article, and just posted it for our listeners, not thinking about the fact that when I post to the Traveling the Vortex website, it posts as Traveling the Vortex.
Yeah.
It just, boom, done.
Only the 3 of us can see who posted it. So,
and so it just went up, And then suddenly there was this kind of brouhaha behind the scenes about, well, not all of us feel that way. Because, like I said, I didn't think of it in that regard.
You fell in. I knew you did. I knew you fell into the trappings of when you see something, especially when you're looking from our perspective of the Facebook page, and you can see posted by Sean. Immediately, you think people are going to think, "Oh, well, Sean posted this." So these are my comments, and so that's why it was. That's why I texted and said maybe we ought to sign whenever because I'm not opposed to each of us posting our opinions on our Facebook page. What I think we should be very careful about doing is painting that opinion across the board. So
for the
we don't
record,
want Sean to paint the picture that all of us hate 13th Doctor.
Right, that wasn't it at all.
We don't want people to think all of us hate the 13th Doctor.
That wasn't it at all. For the record, no, I don't hate the 13th Doctor. But
Series 11.
But for the record, yes, that post was me and was not reflective of the other opinions hosts of Traveling the Vortex, and any hate mail should be directed to Sean at travelingthevortex.com. They had nothing to do with it, and I thought it was funny that you had to jury rig behind the scenes whatever you did to go in there and tag Sean.
Wasn't that hard?
It's called an edit button.
Oh, is that?
You can edit things after you post them,
Sean didn't even know he could edit his own stuff.
I don't know. I don't know how the internet works. It just
just tab, edit, Sean, save.
There's this magic land out there that does stuff,
it took me probably a good 2 hours to figure out how to get that in there and get your name on there.
I apologize for creating more work for you. So yeah, that one was on me, listeners.
If you hadn't said anything, nobody would have known that I went in there and signed your name to it. They would just assume, oh, Sean took credit for this.
No, I'm man enough to. I am man enough to admit when I make mistakes. I'm man enough to admit when I make mistakes, and I'm man enough to admit that I don't know how to fix them. I rely on you for that.
So, what do we got coming up on the schedule, Sean? Now that we've kind of moved everything around,
I don't know.
I can tell you.
I used to know. It's probably going to change, so why bother?
Tune in next week to find out.
Surprise!
Let's see what we spring on you next week. Pretty soon the listeners won't know. They'll just show up and wonder what they're going to talk about this week.
Next week, the question of American independence will finally be decided. I believe next week we will finally get to the Seventh Doctor stories, Operation Volcano, the Titan Comics miniseries, and whatever the heck that silly Big Finish story is that I can never remember. Death Collectors.
And Spider's Shadow.
Yeah, 2 audios from Big
So
Finish.
Everything just kind of shifts back another week.
Well, we get a good another visit by the Seventh Doctor, which I'm excited for because I am just slowly becoming a huge fan of the Seventh Doctor. So there's still some stinker stories in the TV series, but overall, I love the Seventh Doctor. All right, well, Keith, if they want to contact us and get some feedback out to us, what can they do to do that?
They can send it directly to feedback@travelingthevortex.com, or if you're on our websites, just click on the Send Us Feedback tab, or like Daniel, shoot us a tweet or direct message on Twitter or any form of social media. We're
Absolutely.
out there everywhere.
And don't be afraid. If you want to send audio feedback, that's encouraged as well. We'll take that as well as written. Either way, we love it. We love to read it out. We love to listen to it. So, and of course, if people want to help support the podcast, what can they do, Sean?
They can send checks and money orders and cash and
Stop
shiny
it.
buttons.
How can they really do it?
They can go to either our website and click on the button that says Become a Patron, or they can go to our Patreon site, which is out there. It's easier, I think, to go to our website and do it that way.
I think it's simply patreon.com/travelingthevortex. I think that's the easiest way to get
it is, but then you have to spell.
There. No, that's true. And if you're in the UK, we do spell traveling the American way. So
1 L.
Yes.
All right.
But yes, you can go there and donate some money, and it goes right back into this podcast and helps keep us on the air, paying for server space, etc.
It keeps us on the interwebs, not necessarily the air. One day maybe we'll broadcast this somewhere, and then we won't make a liar out of you anymore. All right. Is there anything else
I'm not crazy about it. Play one on TV.
Is there anything else we need to touch on before we close this one out?
I don't think so.
All right. Well, if that's going to do it for this time, until next time, I'm Glenn.
I'm Keith.
I'm Sean.
Cheers.
Be seeing you.
Good night, everybody.
This is so weird, out of control. Thanks for listening.
So awkward.
You have been listening to Traveling the Vortex. Doctor Who and all of its associated programs are owned and trademarked by the BBC. No infringement is intended or implied.